One of the, I guess, toughest things I had to do was write the book. I spent, I'm not too sure, 8, 9 years in an institution, 5 years in residential school, and several years in a sanatorium where I had TB. And of course, my mother passed away in a sanatorium, so of course, at that young age, you don't know too much, but by the time I got out, I wasn't at home very long before Indian agent and the RCMP showed up. And well, my father and his wife had 8 kids, and of course it almost ended up in a big fight because my grandfather was there and he was trying to fight them off with his cane. And my father's wife at the time was really screaming at them, trying to, but she did save 3 of the kids. So they got 5 of us off to residential school. And I had TB, so then they, you know, I don't know why, but I think I was a biological weapon for them too. I don't know if I got anybody sick, but I probably did. But of course, you don't know how you or who you passed this on to. But anyway, after I got out, of course, the family structure was gone, and I think at 13 I was out in the street. But I was lucky enough. I had an aunt that, well, she was a business lady. She ran a market gardening, so she took me in. But of course, I worked the gardens, worked the fields, and then on Saturdays I would go into the market and sell. And so I got a lot of experience that way, working with customers. And but anyway, I decided, well, hey, what am I going to do? I got to make all my own decisions now. So I think I made one good one, and that was I decided to get myself educated, and so I did. But I worked, I worked my way through, and I always had a lot of money. Well, for a high school kid, because I worked on one of the local farms, and I worked hard when I worked. And the farmer, he wanted me even on the weekends. But in any event, after you get out, you really try to walk away from this somehow. You don't want to remember it, because it was so horrific. Well, when you read the book, you'll see. But in any event, I think about 16, I graduated from high school. But I couldn't get a job anyplace because every place I went, well, they said they don't hire Indians. And they'd tell you to your face. Well, then I happened to have a sister in Detroit. She said, well, come on over here, we'll get your job right away. And this was sort of in the big automotive years, late 50s, early 60s. And when I got over there, well, hey, I had a job next day. And then, of course, eventually brought my brother and friends over. And the crazy thing about Detroit in those days was there was a lot of Indians that came into the city. And I think it was pretty close to 100% employment. Every Indian that was there worked. The only place I ever seen where you had nearly 100% employment of Indians. But the crazy thing as well was the racism was against the blacks, and they actually liked the Indians. So, so I even myself, hey, I got the best job. Said, well, okay, I became a machinist, and but I eventually, by accident, and it was an accident, I fractured an ankle, in California. I was living in California at the time. Now I decided to come back. And I had an uncle in politics, and he's one of the vice presidents of the provincial organization. He kept pushing me. He says, Del, you're one of the smartest guys around. You got to go to university. So, well, he kept pushing me, and eventually I did. So, but after that, I got into land claims. I got a job doing land claims research. Pretty soon, I reorganized the whole setup, and even got into getting the land claims process in place with Indian Affairs. Nobody had the kind of background I had even then to be able to do something, even though it was still kind of one-sided. At least they did settle quite a few claims. But I was involved in that whole process. So, and then with all the research that I'd done, I was an expert on Aboriginal treaty rights. And from there, the provincial organization decided that, well, hey, we want you to be our leader. And I said, well, I've never been in politics. I've never been elected or anything. And I said, besides, this is, I get in front of any more than 3 people. I said, I can't talk. I said, you'll goddamn soon learn. which was the truth. So, and then, so I did a couple terms for them. But all the time I was really thinking about how do we protect our rights. I was tired of going to court and seeing our guys convicted of hunting and fishing, and then kind of laughing was they quote the St. Catharines milling case. Even the judge, well, sorry, the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. Sorry we didn't protect your rights. And I get it. Somehow it changes. So. And I talked to a lot of people, lots of legal people, and I had legal people working for me as well. And so I agreed that perhaps the best thing we can do for now is get in the Constitution, get it entrenched in the Constitution. And so that, that's essentially what the whole book is about. It's my whole life from residential school on through getting an education and then getting involved and actually doing something. And eventually, so I kept pushing this idea all across Canada. I was really always after support for it, to get our rights entrenched so they can't charge our people anymore. And eventually, opportunity come up to run for national leader. So I was trying to talk the other leaders into running. There was a couple of lawyers, but they were too comfortable where they're at. So I told them, well, hey, if you guys aren't going to run, at least will support me. I said, I'll give it a go. And so I did, and I got elected. I was close, but I got elected. And so I really begun the process of getting us involved in the Constitution. It got us involved in the total process of they had the constitutional talks were assigned to a special committee of Parliament, and I got involved in the debates and then discussion and the presentation. But for our own people, we sat down together a lot of times and discussed this. I had elders, I had people all over the country, and we put together what I thought was the toughest wording that you could possibly have, so that nobody could overturn it, or nobody could come in with an opinion that said this wasn't so or that wasn't so. And that's why Section 25 does that. They can't derogate from the true meaning. We're the only ones who can give it a true meaning. Okay, but once it did get in, we had one problem. But it wasn't so much because of our side, it was because they didn't really want to look at what was the meaning of Aboriginal rights, you know. They didn't want to look at it at all. And so my thoughts were, well, that's okay, because at that time they thought that Aboriginal treaty rights was defined by the St. Catharines milling case. And so I thought, well, hey, when this does come effective, the only ones that can actually interpret Aboriginal treaty rights is us, ourselves. Not the government, not anybody's opinion, but us ourselves. So that's where it is today. And I can fill in that void myself if I ever get to court and it needs to be addressed or interpreted in court. I can do that now. And as I tell people a lot of times now, I says, who would you rather hear a definition of Aboriginal treaty rights from? A lawyer that's been chasing ambulances all their life, or me that's been working in this thing for 50 years? So that's what it's going to come down to. But in any event, there's probably things you know, like I didn't put in there, but there's also comedy in there. And well, hey, let me tell you one story in there. Okay. My son's mom was with me at the time. We went to England to you know, we opened an office, and I was lobbying around the world. And, that's what pushed the federal government to send Cretchen hail me down in the Parliament building and asked me to close the office. And then we would we'd get our Aboriginal treaty rights protection in the Constitution. And that's when it really happened. But before then, while we were in England, one of the evenings, she says, let's go out tonight, you know, and have some fun and see the town. So I said, okay. So we went out. She had us lined up at a comedy club, and a real nice place. And of course, I'm all dressed up, and she's all dressed up. But she always liked to wear a really colorful native kind of dress, and I was a hat. And so as we went into the place, I greased the palm of the maitre d' there. And so he put us right at the stage. So we were sitting there, and after a while, the comedian come on the floor, of course, notices her and decides, well, he's going to have a lot of fun making fun of her, and then he started on her, and she had an awful temper too. And, of course, we'd had a couple of beer by then, and finally he come at her, and she got mad. She took off her shoes, jumped up on the table, jumped up on the stage, grabbed him, threw him down, and started punching that. And he was screaming for help. And it just so happened at that moment the show was supposed to be over, so all the spotlights come on and shone on her, you know, and of course she's kind of startled, so she got up and looked around, took a bow, and looked down the and the poor man, he kind of got up, kind of shuffled himself around and got his clothes a little straighter, and then looks up at the lights, and then he took a bow as well. Well, he wasn't going to let this go. But everybody thought it was part of the show. Yeah, the crazy things happen sometimes, you know, and it's just...
Well, she stood up for herself, stood her ground.
Yeah. Well, and after that, after we walked back, we happened to walk by Buckingham Palace, so she pulls out a joint, so we ordered on the side that a puff.
Any questions?
Read the book, sounds good.
I got a question. When you mentioned the treaty office in England,
Yeah.
how long did you have it open until they said, whoa, Del, slow down?
Probably, let's see, maybe, I think about 6 months.
Oh, well, very, very brief, eh?
Yeah. But, you know, today I'd say, as treaty people, we should have an office open up there. And, you know, we don't need government people, but all traditional people, we should have an office open there. I think if I had the health myself, I could go over there and get the whole damn thing funded for nothing, you know. Just speaking engagements, so. But that's something I guess people should consider for the future, you know. It'll be helpful to ensure that you maintain all your rights. It was useful.
What kind of things did the office do? Like what?
Well, most of it was handing out information. Then I had a lot of meetings with members of parliament, and you know, just promoting our vision, our side, and what should be done. But like I said, I think it's something still needed today.
It's kind of like, it feels like it went quiet. Like there's not a lot of, you don't hear about
No,
movement.
hey, I don't know what happened to the First Nation political organizations, but they should be doing this work.
No,
you know?
AFN's a mess.
They're all dead silent. And, well, matter of fact, one of them in Ontario locked me out of their building because it was they were adopting some sort of Indian affairs policy, and I just went and criticized it, so they wouldn't let me in. But then all the media was there, so I was able to get the message out. Okay, well, you know, I hope everybody enjoys it because
Looking forward to reading it.
I think everybody eventually will need it because it'll be a reference book for you as well. It'll you can always look at it. Here, this is where Aboriginal treaty rights came from. This is what it means. And this is how it got put in.